Bangladesh's parliament was dissolved on Tuesday, the president's office said in a statement, a day after Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned and fled the country following violent protests demanding her ouster. The announcement came hours after protesting student leaders set a deadline to dissolve parliament and warned a strict program would be launched if their deadline is not met. Bangladesh's military was in control of the country on Tuesday after mass protests forced longtime ruler Hasina to flee. The unrest began last month in the form of protests against civil service job quotas and then escalated into wider calls for Hasina to stand down. Hasina, 76, had been in power since 2009 but was accused of rigging elections in January and then watched millions of people take to the streets over the past month demanding she step down. More than 400 people died as security forces sought to quell the unrest, but the protests grew and Hasina finally fled Bangladesh aboard a helicopter on Monday as the military turned against her. Nahid Islam, one of the key organizers of the movement against Hasina, said in a video on Facebook with two other student leaders that parliament should be dissolved by 3 p.m., 9 a.m. GMT, on Tuesday and asked revolutionary students to be ready if that did not happen. Bangladesh's Army Chief General Wakhruzzaman was due to meet student leaders at 6 a.m. GMT to discuss the formation of an interim government that is expected to hold elections soon after it takes over. It was not immediately clear if the meeting had taken place and if the students' deadline to dissolve parliament came after the meeting. Zaman had announced on Monday afternoon on state television that Hasina had resigned and the military would form a caretaker government. Traffic was lighter than usual on Tuesday in the usually chaotic streets of Dhaka and schools reopened with thin attendance after closing down in mid-July as protests against quotas in government jobs spiraled. Garment factories, which supply apparel to some of the world's top brands and are a mainstay of the economy, will remain closed on Tuesday and plans to reopen will be announced later, the main Garment Manufacturers Association said. Protester leaders want Nobel laureate Yunus to lead interim government. Zaman plans to meet the protest organizers at 12 p.m. local time, 6 a.m. GMT, on Tuesday, the army said in a statement. Asif Mahmood, Nahid Islam and Abu Bakr Majumdar, student leaders who spearheaded the protest movement against job quotas, issue a statement in Dhaka, Bangladesh, in this screen grab from a social media video released on August 6, 2024, Asif Mahmood via Reuters/Facebook. Student protest leaders, ahead of an expected meeting with the army chief, said that they wanted Nobel laureate and microfinance pioneer Muhammad Yunus, 84, to lead the government. In Dr. Yunus, we trust, Asif Mahmood, a key leader of the Students Against Discrimination, SAD, group, wrote on Facebook. Any government other than the one we recommended would not be accepted, Nahid Islam, one of the key organizers of the student movement, said in a video on Facebook with three other organizers. We wouldn't accept any army-supported or army-led government. We have also had discussions with Muhammad Yunus and he has agreed to take on this responsibility at our invitation, Islam added. A reliable source confirmed to the Daily Star that Yunus has agreed to lead the interim government as its chief advisor. Yunus himself has not commented on the call, but in an interview with India's The Print, he said Bangladesh had been an occupied country under Hasina. Today all the people of Bangladesh feel liberated, it quoted Yunus as saying. Yunus, 84, and his Grameen Bank won the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize for work to lift millions out of poverty by granting tiny loans of under $100 to the rural poor of Bangladesh, but he was indicted by a court in June on charges of embezzlement that he denied. Yunus is undergoing minor medical procedures in Paris, his press secretary Sabir Osmani said, but did not immediately comment on the statements from the student leaders. The Nobel laureate told Indian broadcaster Times Now in a recorded interview that Monday marked the second liberation day for Bangladesh after its 1971 war of independence from Pakistan. But he said Bangladeshis were angry with neighbor India for allowing Hasina to land there after fleeing Dhaka. India is our best friend, people are angry at India because you are supporting the person who destroyed our lives, Yunus said. Bangladesh's ex-Prime Minister Khaleda Zia has been released from years of house arrest, her party said on Tuesday. She is now freed, a Bangladesh National Party, BNP, party spokesman, AKM Wahiduzzaman, told AFP, a day after orders to release her were given following the military taking control. Zia, 78 and in poor health, was jailed by her arch-rival Hasina for graft in 2018. Bangladeshi President Mohammad Shahabuddin on late Monday had ordered Zia's release as well as of prisoners from the protests. India deeply concerned. Meanwhile, India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar told Parliament he was deeply concerned till law and order is visibly restored in neighbouring Bangladesh. The Foreign Minister also gave the first official confirmation Hasina was in India. Jaishankar told an all-party meeting that India has assured Hasina of its help and given her time to decide the future course of action, the Press Trust of India, PTI, reported quoting sources. Briefing political party leaders, Jaishankar said India has spoken to the Bangladesh Army chief to ensure the safety of over 10,000 Indian students there, the sources said. Replying to questions from various leaders, including Rahul Gandhi, Jaishankar did not rule out the role of foreign governments in the unrest in Bangladesh but emphasized that the situation was too fluid and that India has been keeping a watch on the evolving situation, the PTI report added. 113 killed in Monday's unrest. Streets in Dhaka were largely peaceful on Tuesday, with traffic resuming and shops opening, but government offices mainly closed, after a day of chaotic violence saw at least 113 people killed. It was the deadliest day since protests began in early July, with at least 413 people killed overall, according to an AFP tally based on police, government officials and doctors at hospitals. People carry looted items from the Ganyavorban, the Prime Minister's residence, after the resignation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in Dhaka, Bangladesh on August 5, 2024, Reuters. Millions of Bangladeshis flooded the streets of Dhaka after Zaman's announcement on Monday. I feel so happy that our country has been liberated, said Sazidonoff, 21, comparing the events to the independence war that split the nation from Pakistan more than 5 decades ago. We have been freed from a dictatorship. It's a Bengal uprising, what we saw in 1971 and, are, now seeing in 2024. Protesters stormed Parliament and torched TV stations, while some smashed statues of Hasina's father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the country's independence hero. Others set a museum dedicated to the former leader on fire, flames licking at portraits in destruction barely thinkable just hours before, when Hasina had the loyalty of the security forces under her autocratic grip. The time has come to make them accountable for torture, said protester Qazi Ahmed. Sheikh Hasina is responsible for murder. Offices of Hasina's Awami League across the country were torched and looted, eyewitnesses told AFP. The World Bank on Monday said it was assessing the impact of events in Bangladesh on its loan program after the recent developments. We are assessing the impact of the unfolding situation on the World Bank Group program and remain committed to supporting the development aspirations of the people of Bangladesh, a spokesperson for the bank said. Political vacuum. Hasina's fate was uncertain. She fled the country by helicopter, a source close to the ousted leader told AFP. Media in neighbouring India reported Hasina had landed at a military airbase near New Delhi. A top-level source said she wanted to transit on to London, but calls by the British government for a UN-led investigation into unprecedented levels of violence put that into doubt. There were widespread calls by protesters to ensure Hasina's close allies remained in the country. Bangladesh's military said they had shut down Dhaka's international airport on Monday evening, without giving a reason. Bangladesh has a long history of coups. The military declared an emergency in January 2007 after widespread political unrest and installed a military-backed caretaker government for 2 years. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres stressed the importance of a peaceful, orderly and democratic transition, his spokesman said. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell echoed that call. Former colonial ruler Britain and the United States meanwhile urged calm. Michael Kugelman, director of the South Asia Institute at the Washington-based Wilson Center, warned that Hasina's departure would leave a major vacuum and that the country was in uncharted territory. "The coming days are critical," he said. Families wait as some political prisoners freed. Families of prisoners arrested during the recent student protests and those who disappeared since ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was elected in 2009, along with human rights activists, wait outside the Directorate General of Forces Intelligence Office in Dhaka on August 6, 2024, AFP. Meanwhile, families of political prisoners secretly jailed in Bangladesh under the autocratic rule of Hasina waited desperately for news of their relatives, as some of those missing were released. "We need answers," said Sanjida Islam Tuli, a coordinator of Mayadik, meaning the Call of the Mothers, a group campaigning for the release of people detained by Hasina's security forces. Rights groups accused Hasina's security forces of abducting and disappearing some 600 people, including many from the main opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party and the banned Jamaat-e-Islami, the country's largest religio-political party. Tuli told AFP that at least 20 families gathered outside a military intelligence force building in a northern Dhaka neighborhood, waiting for news of their relatives. Among the most high-profile of those released on Tuesday was opposition activist and lawyer Ahmad bin Qasim, son of Mir Qasim Ali, the executed leader of Jamaat-e-Islami. He was released from secret detention this morning, family friend and relative Masoom Khalili told AFP. He had a medical check-up, his condition is stable. Qasim, a British-educated barrister, was abducted, allegedly by security forces in plainclothes, in August 2016. Security forces during Hasina's rule were accused of detaining tens of thousands of opposition activists, killing hundreds in extrajudicial encounters, and disappearing their leaders and supporters. Human Rights Watch last year said security forces had committed over 600 enforced disappearances since Hasina came to power in 2009, and nearly 100 remain unaccounted for. Hasina's government denied the allegations of disappearances and extrajudicial killings, saying some of those reported missing drowned in the Mediterranean while trying to reach Europe. "We heard Ahmad bin Qasim has been released," Tuli said, "but what happened to others?